Hello, we're looking at the pre-calculus part 1. This is in lesson 1-2, which is just the basics of functions and their graphs. This is example 3 found on page 151 of your pre-calc textbook. We're determining whether an equation represents a function or not. And what happens is when we determine whether each of the equations defines y as a function of x. Now, remember what we said in previous recordings, that for something to be a function, there can only be one and only one y value for the x value that is presented. So when we look at this first one here, a, we're saying that the equation is x squared plus y equals 4. Now, if you look down here in the solution, if you were to solve for y simply by subtracting x squared from both sides, which is what this step is trying to show you right here, then you end up with y equals 4 minus x squared. Now, in this last equation, you can see that for each value of x, there is one and only one value of y. Then therefore this equation does define y as a function of x. When you resolve for y in this problem, you can see that regardless of what you put in for this x value here, you're just going to get one y value. Now, again, in contrast to that, let me scroll down just a little bit. In contrast to that, let's look at b. If we look at b here, we're solving again for y, we're going to subtract the x from both sides exactly as you see in this step right here. That's going to leave you y squared equals 4 minus x squared. To get y by itself, I have to take the square root of this. And anytime you take the square root of a number, you have to remember that it becomes a plus or a minus. Now, that plus or minus in this equation shows that for certain values of x, specifically the values between -2 and 2, but that's not near as important as just the fact that there's a plus or minus there. There are going to be two values for y. That means if I put and I think they give you, if they put 1 in, if you put 1 in there, you're going to get 4 minus 1 squared, which is going to be 3. But because there's a square root and a plus or minus, you're really getting plus or minus square root of 3. Which means when I put a 1 in, I could get positive square root of 3, or if I put a 1 in, I could get a negative square root of 3. And the bottom line to that is the x value can only have one specific y value that it matches. The x values cannot repeat. Therefore, this does not qualify and does not define y as a function of x. Okay? And you could do the same thing for checkpoint 3. A, if you solve that for y, you'll find out that there's one and only one answer. If you solve for y, it's going to be just like part B was. You're going to end up with two values for y, which is unacceptable. So this one does define y as a function of x, and this one does not. Okay? I hope that was a little bit helpful.